so much for a wonderful introduction. You can always know how old your LinkedIn profile is by seeing number of years of experience. So it says 15, but it's 20. So last time I updated it must have been 5 years ago. Anyways, let me quickly introduce Incubite. We are a software services agency. We help big companies, enterprise applications to modernize their software stack. And we really take software craftsmanship practices to heart. So if you're working with us, you're working with XP, you're actually crafting software. We really care how we write our software as opposed to just writing what you're writing, like focusing on what you're writing. I have Akshay over here. He's one of our lead tech advisors who helps us with such big initiatives. Talking of modernization, I think a lot of people actually think of software modernization as just writing new software, right, in a new technology. But there's a lot of strategy that goes in it, a lot of planning that goes in it. So today we are going to talk about how you migrate AngularJS application to Angular. But it's actually quite common across any two stacks. So we are going to talk about strategies that would apply a lot to any other two stacks as well. But when we use our examples, we'll actually use AngularJS to Angular. Now, anyone over here who has worked on a software that's older than 15 years old, like older than 15 years? So are you working on a product that's old product, more than 15 years old? No. More than 10 years old? Darn. Anyone working with AngularJS? Okay, we got 2 people. Awesome. Anyway, so let's go through a few. Okay, anyone who is interested in modernizing their tech stack, wherever you're working. Right. Okay, thank God. All right, so we have a few people. Good. So let's move on. Let's talk about why to modernize and why not to. Right? A lot of time, what happens is that you see new tech that's just released. Let's say Rust, right? And then everyone wants to write code in Rust. That's exactly why you should not modernize, right? Technologies come and go, but that's not a good reason why you should start modernizing or start doing a tech migration in your company. Other is personal preferences. So a lot of time when you come to or go to a new company, you say, hey, in my last company, we used Ruby on Rails. So why don't we use it? And you kind of propose that in a company where they have been using Java for, let's say, last 10 years, 20 years, right? So once again, put your personal preferences aside. When you're making software, you're making it for a business, right? So we have to actually pretty much help them move forward. And then third is sales. Apart from our nerdiness and geekiness, I think one of the reasons some technologies are very famous is because they have a very high sales force running behind them, right? So there's always new information coming to you. They're throwing new data at you and saying, hey, our tech is the best. Let's say Oracle or MS SQL, right? And that's also one of the reasons why you may not want to use or start a tech migration. Now, why modernize a software? Now, you may have, you see a lot of things over here, but there may be many reasons, but let's focus on a few over here. One is customer happiness. Now, remember when you are writing or migrating a software, can someone tell me who you are doing it for? For the user, right? So 2 people. You're doing it for the user and you're doing it for the business. Right? Folks, can you please not have conversations in the back? So, anyways, so we do for 2 people. One is customers and other is for the business. So let's remember that when you are doing your software modernization, you are doing it for customer happiness. You are actually working in an industry where your customers are also using the latest applications all the time, right? Your customers are using Uber, they're using Ola, they're using Swiggy, they're using single page applications, right? And then you may be working in a company that doesn't have a single page application. So your customer actually sees that this application is slow or it doesn't have, so anyone who has used, let's say IRCTC, right? How happy does it make you when you use IRCTC? Or when you file, taxes. Do you love it? Do you like, is the experience like Uber? No, right? So there's a good reason why you would want to modernize those tech stack, because the customer is not happy. The second is unhappy developers. Have you ever worked in a company where the company used old tech stack? right? And that old tech stack, if everyone's unhappy over there, because सब लोग पुराना चीज़ें use कर रहे हैं, right? एकदम, and then you have to learn, not learn, you have to unlearn. So you may have learned new things, but you actually go back 20 years to learn the things, tech stack which is there. So unhappy developers is other thing. Now where you have unhappy developers, company culture also becomes bad. Right? So you want to work in a company where you have latest tech stack so that the customers are happy, employees are happy, and that actually becomes a fuel behind a good company culture as well. Right? So these are some of the good reasons why you want to modernize your software. Now software modernization is not an easy task. Last year in the States, it cost $1.5 million on an average to modernize softwares per project. It took around 16 months, that's the duration of a software modernization project, and that's an average, which means many projects may have gone way about 2 years and 3 years, right? More than 79% of the team fail at modernization. And then you may ask, why do they fail? So let's look at some of the challenges. First is technical debt, right? Does anyone know here what is technical debt? Okay, so when you work with a company, most probably you're doing a modernization project for a very time-tested product, right? Time-tested product is product that's been there for a couple of years, right? What happens when the products are there for a couple of years? You are continually evolving them, and as you're evolving them, you take shortcuts. Have you ever taken a shortcut when you're developing something? I'm sure oh, come on, he's saying no, he's lying. So anyways. Right? Exactly. So we take a lot of shortcuts while we are doing this. And not only we are taking shortcuts, sometimes what happens is, and we'll talk about it, but these kind of things increase technical debt. As it increases technical debt, it's harder to change software, right? So that's why it's tough. Second thing is learning curve, right? Why is it hard to modernize? Because समझो आपका AngularJS में से you want to move to Angular. So AngularJS is what programming language? JavaScript. Angular is TypeScript. So now you have to know 2 programming languages, right? And that makes it harder. Now you have to know JavaScript and TypeScript, syntax of one and syntax of the other. Then there is complexity. And complexity and technical debt also goes hand in hand. So if there's, let's say, a product that's been working, anyone works in finance industry, billing, invoices, ऐसा सब होता है, ऐसा है. But you would know, right, in India only if you're working, if you are creating a software from past 5 years, and if that was printing a receipt or an invoice or something, India में पहले GST नहीं था, right? So what was there? Service tax, VAT, different taxes were there, and then and they were all state-based. So just imagine all the logic that was there. And then we removed it, and we introduced GST. And then in GST also, we changed laws of GST like at least 2-3 times in last couple of years. So what happens? Your software is continually becoming more and more complex. And फिर ये जब हो रहा होता है तब nobody goes and thinks कि चलो जाके वो service tax का code delete करते हैं. So that service tax code is also there, VAT code is also there, GST code is also there, and that's how it not only becomes complex, it's becoming with technical debt. So now you have code that you don't use, and that's why harder to migrate, right? Dependencies. A lot of time you actually think that you're just writing code that's just simple code that you're writing, let's say for a Flutter app, right? But Flutter app may be depending on some things, and then that app also has a backend, and that backend is using, I don't know, Java, and then Java is using something that is using Log4j. So suddenly you realize that Log4j has a vulnerability and a lot of things have to change, right? So dependencies also make things very hard. Testing. How many of you over here work on an app where automated testing is part of the CI/CD pipeline and it covers like 90% code? That's Incubite. Your answers don't count. Good one. Which company is that, by the way? Smart Sense. Well, kudos. Nice place. So, is it good to assume that wherever you are working, that you don't have 80-90% of test code coverage? See, and that makes it very hard because you are changing code. If you are changing code, don't you want to know if your code is working after changing it or not? Right? This is how bugs come. So that is why lack of testing makes tech migration very hard as well. Finally, business continuity. How many of you are software developers? Any kind of software, right? How many of you are business owners? Awesome. Now, Do you think as software developers you'll go to your business owner and or even business manager, forget about owner, and tell them कि चलो थोड़े दिन business बंद करते हैं क्योंकि मैं तब सब rewrite करूँगा? Would they actually say yes? Right? So you wouldn't even dare asking questions like that. So all of this changing everything with business continuity, यानी business बंद नहीं होना चाहिए, right? You have to keep working. You have to let the business still thrive. And then finally there is this always, any product managers or project managers here? Good, so I can say this. There's always this one product manager जो आके बोलते हैं वो एक जरा checkbox डाल देना ना उधर, right? और थोड़ा इतना डाल देना ना उधर. So you're doing all this, but then they also want that one एक extra feature that you have to add in your code यहाँ and वहाँ. So all of these things combined makes software modernization very, very hard. Now let's talk about a few migration strategies. One is Big Bang. Do you know what Big Bang migration strategy would be? You throw the old code and you write new code, right? Easy. I'm going to do a Big Bang rewrite of my app. This strategy would only work if you're working on small applications, right? Or you are rewriting, let's say, a phone app from React Native to Flutter, right? And then it kind of works, Big Bang approach. It also works when your source application is, or source technology is not same as the destination technology, right? So it happens when, let's say you're moving your COBOL app to Java app. So that's when maybe you may do a Big Bang rewrite. And then the third one, I don't know if you have ever worked in such an old company where they say कि app है पर code नहीं है, right? So this happens, right? So in that case, you'd actually look at the app, figure out the behavior, and then rewrite the entire thing all over again, right? So these are few of the reasons why you would go with Big Bang. But I think next two ones are more practical strategies. One is Strangler Fig. Does anyone know about Strangler Fig tree? So Strangler Fig tree is a tree that kind of grows around other trees. And then it slowly over time just swallows the old tree and the new tree only remains, right? So it's called Strangler Fig. And this is a pattern. And moving on, whenever you see a diagram, if you see blue box, it represents old code. Green lines or green color represents new code, right? So the way Strangler Fig works is that you imagine there's a huge monolith, the blue code. It's written in old technology. And then you find this one thin area which you can modernize, right? So you change that area from, let's say in this case, JavaScript to TypeScript. And then you do it again, and then you do it again. You keep on doing it until you have no old code remaining. Only the new code remains, right? So what happens, you get your business continuity. You're not telling someone stop all this thing, or you're also not saying मैं पूरा code site पे लिखूंगा नया application और फिर मैं ये वाला release करूंगा. You can never do that. Why you cannot write a whole thing on the side? Because the old code is always evolving. उसमें कोई GST का change डाल रहा है, कोई नया code डाल रहा है. So you can't really say old code को freeze करो मैं नया site पे लिखूंगा, right? So that's Strangler Fig. Second is incremental. So this may be two very separate apps, two very separate technologies, and what you say is that, hey, I'm going to create this new thin app, thin layer, keep it separate, and then other old app still keeps running. So what happens is, essentially at some point of time, you are running two apps. One is old, other is new. And then you are continuously moving functionalities from old app to the new app. So that's incremental way of writing code. Now let's talk about prep, and then I'm sure you're already bored by looking at all the slides, so we'll look at some code as well. But you don't just start. So all the time what happens is you think of as developers, we're always extremely excited about the new tech, right? So if you're writing code in, let's say, if you're a Java developer and you want to do it in latest version of Spring, or if you're of course, JavaScript developer and you want to migrate to TypeScript, let's say, using Angular 17 or even React for that matter, right? If you want to do one of those things, you're only focusing on the new tech. But what we really want to do is we want to tidy first. Tidy first means we have to clean our existing code first, right? So imagine this. If you're moving houses, right? एक घर में से आप दूसरे घर में move हो रहे हो. I'm sure many of you already have experienced that, moving from one house to the other, right? Now, if you're moving from one house to the other, there will be a few things that you want to throw out. आपको नहीं use करनी है. तो आप कब करोगे? पुराने घर में करोगे या सब चीजें move करके नए घर ले जाओगे फिर उसको फेंकोगे? पुराने घर में, right? So tidying you do anyways in the पहले सब ठीक पुराने घर में करते फिर नए घर में move होते, right? So that's exactly what this step is about. The first preparation step is about making your existing legacy Angular app proper, AngularJS app proper, right? So first thing that you should do over there, our recommendation is folder by feature. And this doesn't, again, not in Angular. If you are a software developer today and if you are writing code, हम लोगों को ऐसी आदत होती है, we create a folder called components, service. If you are a backend developer, you can create a folder called servlet, models, right? In Angular, it is components, modules, services. So you create folders like those, and you dump all the services in one folder, all the controllers in one, all the components in one. That's not a great idea. Right? Imagine if your app was a book and someone had to go and open a file in it, they should know, okay, I'm looking in the UI, the feature is called phone app. So let me go and open the directory structure. Is there a folder called phone? Is there a file called phone? So you create a directory structure that is by feature, not by technology. You try to do one component per file. So a lot of time, because it's JavaScript, you could put a lot of code in just one file. So you break it down into multiple files. And then you add TypeScript support. So those are the few things that you do before you start any new thing. This is just changing the old app. And then other preparation is, now you are going to, what you're going to do is there's one JavaScript app, one TypeScript app, right? So what you want to do is you want to use the latest technology to open your old JavaScript app. So this is how you will create a module. Whenever you see a green part, green box, that's a new Angular code. That new Angular code will start your old AngularJS app, right? So that's what now Akshay will show in the code. Thank you.
Okay. Let's see one application here. So I already started an application. This is a sample application in AngularJS. It has two features. One list file, list page, and another detail page. So if you click on any of the pages, it will open a detail page. So let me show you the code for this as well. Do you see the code? Yeah. So the way it works, let me actually start the application. Simple command npm start, and all the components are listed in components directory. All the modules are listed in modules, and if I open any of the module, let's say phone list module, you can see the module declaration as well as the declaration of controller. So this is what renders the page, and this is what renders the screen here. So as preparation, what you want to do is first make sure that one file has only one thing. So I have prepared that code as well. So if I check that out, you see, you can observe this area. Earlier it used to have only HTML, but now the module is, sorry, the component is in separate file, as well as module has only module declaration. And another next step you can do, you can also observe this, there are components, the folder called components and modules, right? So if I show you the new code, now I have grouped all the features in a directory. So phone detail has its own component, JS and HTML. So imagine you are trying to migrate only this page. The only folder you need to touch is this folder, right? And as an optional step, you can migrate to TypeScript as well. So if I show you that code, so I have migrated one component, phone list, into TypeScript, and this is the TypeScript component. It is still running in Angular. Nothing related to, sorry, it is still running in AngularJS, nothing related to Angular. The only thing we changed is TypeScript support, and only thing you need to do is run TypeScript compiler, and it will generate a JavaScript file, and you can still use as it is. So these are all structural changes, no logical change so far, right? As part of next preparation, what we need to do is we need to bootstrap the AngularJS application inside new Angular application, right? So let me show you that. Uh, so in order to do that, I use simple Angular CLI command. It will scaffold Angular application for me, and it has oh, is it not 4? Oh, I'll have to remove a file. If I stop the I'm stopping the existing server. Uh, let's see how that looks. Okay. So I created new folder called new app. Great name, right? It doesn't have anything except new Angular code. And if I show you that, let's use npm start to run. And now it runs in a new port, and it is just Angular hello world application, right? So nothing related to AngularJS so far. Now we need to make sure that old Angular application runs inside the new application, right? And for that we are going to use a module provided by Angular called ng upgrade. Let's see how that looks like. So for that, all we need to do is we need to go to index.html of the old AngularJS application, copy all the JS files, since there is no compilation involved in AngularJS, right? So copy all the JavaScript files, go to AngularJSON of the Angular application, and make sure all the files are there. So when the build process kicks off, it has all the context of old application. And if I show you the code for that, so you see, there's a new the build process is the new application, but it is running the old application, right? So first step is covered. Now the base is Angular. Let's do actual migration. Sapan, do you want to explain? See the timer. Yeah.
All right. So what we saw so far was how old code could be started by new Angular bootstrapping, right? Main.ts is now running old code. Now, how do we start changing it? So what you do is you find a leaf node, which is usually a service. What do we mean by leaf node? Leaf node is piece of code that does not depend on many other files, right? Many other services, many other. So you find this low-hanging fruit, and then you change it to a TypeScript file, right? And then you again do it over and over again, right? So you keep doing it until everything is green. So you start from the leaf node, then you keep going up. Now if you look at the two arrows over there in the corner, one is green and one is blue. I think you can't read what it, but one says ng upgrade and other says ng downgrade. What ng downgrade does is, so of course when you are doing this, what's going to happen? You're going to have some new TypeScript code that you want to use in old code. And then you're going to have some old code that you want to use it in new TypeScript code. So you are going to have to make them compatible. So old code should be able to call new code, and new code should be able to call old code. So how do you make that compatible? You do it by ng upgrade and ng downgrade, right? Once you use ng upgrade, your TypeScript code will be able to use JavaScript code and vice versa. So now let's quickly see Akshay writing a few files and see how we can actually make it happen.
Okay. So let's start with the first lowest hanging fruit. In the old application, there is a file called phone service. So you see this is a phone service. Let's try to migrate that, right? Uh, so I have a code for that ready as well. Let me check out. See, the phone service is removed, and I moved it into a new folder, Angular application. And I created a new folder called phone because remember we discussed folder by feature. So inside phone, I have a new file called phone service, and this exactly does the same thing. It is written in Angular TypeScript way, new way, but this is where the magic happens. So we are declaring here that inside old Angular module application, whenever you see the dependency that has phone written, use this phone service and use the downgrade injectable to do that. So if you see that code, the phone detail component actually uses that, right? You see phone. So Angular application doesn't know whether this phone dependency is the old AngularJS service or new Angular service, right? And let's try to look at another thing which is component. So let's try to migrate the phone list component. Let me show you how the phone list component actually works. So in old Angular, the phone list is provided by, or it is handled by router, right? Whenever it sees the route phone, it tries to render phone list. We need to remove that handler from that and move it to Angular. So if I show that, see the route is removed, and if I see the route of new application, the phone route is available, right? And I will create a new component for that as well. For most of the features in AngularJS, you will find directly one-to-one comparison or one-to-one mapping in new code. So except minor things like order by and filter pipes, most of the syntax are available here. So you can directly migrate, and you can leverage the new phone service as well here, right? If I show you the application in running, now if you observe, this is the application. The list page is rendered by new Angular app, but the detail page still uses old Angular, and both application runs smooth. The only thing you need to consider is routing part. What happens is in index.js there are two separate divs. One renders Angular application, one renders old AngularJS, and both of the routers accepts the route, and we need to make sure that whenever there is a route which doesn't do anything, you render empty component. So it kind of switches the application, right? And all the magic is happened by downgrade and upgrade. I'll show you how this is the main.ts file. Usually we don't have this block in new Angular application, but this is the code where it uses the old app and injects in the new app, right? Let's see. Okay.
All right. So, hello. Works. So, This is what you saw right now. What you saw was old Angular app and new Angular app working together in one browser window, right? He showed where one detail page and listing page were different, but you could actually have one component side by side, one being old, another being new. And that's how any tech migration should happen. Nobody on the front end should know, hey, this is the old app and this is the new app, right? So it should be seamless. But this is hard, and there's a few challenges. One of them I talked about. Let's first talk about that over here, case studies. And I'll take you a few minutes to read through these. Of course, one is the first step in itself is very hard. Setting up your application to work with two technologies is not an easy task. In this, another one that I would like to highlight is jQuery, right? So a lot of time people use jQuery. So only reason they were using Angular was to make single page application. But everything else is then happening via jQuery. And they've added these wait timeouts and everything in there. Does anyone over here know what jQuery is? Oh, okay, thank God. Okay, all right. So, man, I was feeling old for a second, but good. So, well, anyways, but outside of that, one of the biggest thing is learning curve, right? Did you see how much time actually Akshay spent writing code in this presentation? He didn't. He just showed you old code and new code, JavaScript code and TypeScript code, right? How many of you actually think it's developer's job to write code? How many of you actually think that it's developer's job is to know syntax of Java, of TypeScript? It is, but that's not the only job, right? If we thought that that's the only job, if we actually, there's so many developers who always think that I am the JavaScript developer or I am the TypeScript developer. But if you only thought about that, then now we are just one step away from being replaced by ChatGPT. Thanks for saying it, right? So you can't be the champion of the syntax anymore. You have to be champion of thinking. You have to be champion of strategy. You have to be champion of convincing others what you need to do, right? So that's what a software developer has to do. For syntax and for writing code from one tech to other, we have AI. So that's what we wanted to show today, that at Incubite we have developed this application, internal tool, internal product that we could use to help you migrate from one tech to the other. It's coded, it helps you accelerate your modernization journey. And we are going to quickly show you how we can do it using that too. Let's get started. As you sign in, it will directly connect to your code repositories. And here we have the web application over here. It can help you also fix security vulnerabilities, test generation, but in this specific case, we are doing tech migration. Right? And when we do tech migration, it will tell you how your code is and how it can help you migrate that code, right? Be it in any language. Here, you see the original code is in JavaScript. So it's saying that, hey, there's this old JavaScript code, and we have configured the product to say, move JavaScript AngularJS to Angular in TypeScript. It will write the new code for you, right? So what did we want developers to do? Developers should focus on the strategy. They should figure out how my old application is going to run through the new main.ts and how my TypeScript and JavaScript can work hand in hand. But when it comes down to typing code, I think we could offshore it to AI now, right? So now AI tells you that this is the old code, this is the best new code, right? And of course, we love testing. We want automated tests to be there all the time. So it will also suggest what is the right test for this piece of code. So it shows you original code, it shows you new code, it shows you test code. Now this alone, a lot of time, if you're just a JavaScript developer, you will do ton of Googling, right? You'll go to Stack Overflow, you'll try to find some code or maybe copy some code. Worst case scenario, you are going from one place to the other, 3 hours down the line, you'll find yourself watching a YouTube video on totally something irrelevant, right? So that's what internet is. So tools like these keep you focused in your flow state, right? Now you're here, you know what you have to do next. You simply have to go and click on migrate. That will actually create a pull request. So you didn't have to go out to search old code, to find syntax, to type code, copy, paste, whatever that we do. Here, it will automatically also push the new code to your CI/CD, your GitHub, and also run the CI/CD pipeline. So you can go and have a look at your PR. Again, this is where we are doing the best work that humans do. Humans should review code. Human should see, is it working or not? Human should see all the behaviors are there or not, right? So humans in the loop, they can see everything what has changed. It will automatically create your PR, it will automatically add commit messages, it will automatically change your files, and then finally human should go ahead and close the PR. So your latest code will be in the main branch and your application can start working. That being said, I think that was it. Let's move on. And that was CodeAid, our tool. And I think that was it. So thank you so much, everyone. I think what we saw in summary is, I think what we saw is that it's not our job to just write from old code to new code. It's our job to strategize around it. It's our job to stay true to our businesses and allow them to continually work. And writing code, we can use AI or we can use any other tools, right? So that being said, thank you so much for patiently listening to us, and thank you for the team over here who helped us build CodeAid, and they've come all the way from different cities. Thank you so much. Thanks, Akshay. Do we do questions? Yeah, okay, do we have questions? Yeah, so I think the question is if you have UI changes, and knowing you, is this a web UI or is it a web UX? So UX, changing UX is not tech migration, right? UI also is not a tech migration. So you always remember there are two things that you have to do. When you are changing code, one is structural change. Structural change is code is changing, but your UI or UX is not changing, right? You're changing structure of the code. Think of it like this, that you had a function, you just moved or broke that function into two functions. Users doesn't know, right? So that's UI or UX doesn't really change. It's just the code that changes. Is that what you mean? Right? So that's structure. Another is behavior, in which you change the CSS, colors change, UI changes, UX changes, you move the buttons and all, and always keep them separate. Do the structure changes differently, do the behavior changes differently. So always do structure changes first, see that behavior keeps working, and then you do the behavior changes. So you never mix two of those things, otherwise you'll never know why is something breaking. Is something breaking because you added a new feature, or is something breaking because you migrated a tech, right? Cool. Any other questions? Any other questions before we hang up? That's what we say in the remote world. Yeah? All right. Yeah, go ahead. Sure. So I think by now everyone knows ChatGPT, right? And everyone knows OpenAI, and everyone knows now Bard, right? And people started using it too. But what happens again? There's nothing out there still that gives you end-to-end developer workflow, right? And there's, of course, Copilot X, but Copilot X allows you only to look into one file at a time and works as a code completion tool, right? So it doesn't help you to figure out, focus on modernization, and also give you end-to-end developer workflow that, hey, what do you do when you're working on a modernization project? I don't know about you, but when we at Incubate write new code, we will write test cases, right? To begin with, we'll write test cases so that we know that we are not breaking anything. We'll read old code, we'll generate new code, we'll put it in the CI/CD, we'll build it and see if it works or not. If it does, then we create a PR, then the PR goes. There's nothing out there which does all of it in one go, right? So when Akshay clicked on the migrate button, there was a lot of magic that happened in those 10 seconds, right? We kind of created code, we pushed it, we created a branch, we created a PR, it was ready for someone to review. Of course, CI/CD pipeline was already there, so it will run the test cases too. So all of it end to end. So now what you're looking at is stop spending your time typing code, which should not be a developer's job anyways, and start spending time thinking and validating and making sure that you are delivering the right quality of work. So that's what Coded does. Coded gives you the end-to-end workflow to move from one technology to the other, old to new. Right? Thanks for asking that question though. What else? All right, thanks everyone. Thanks, Akshay. Sorry? Hey, thank you so much. I think please look for me and Akshay both. Look out, find us on Twitter and LinkedIn and connect us. Would love to say hi to you. My full name is Sapan Parikh. On Twitter, I'm Sapan Parikh 18. On LinkedIn, I'm just Sapan Parikh. Please connect with me. And Akshay Vader, Vadher, right? All right. Thank you so much, everyone.